Memorial Day in America. It's a day that everybody in America needs to remember and to honor those that have fallen so that we can enjoy the things that we enjoy on Memorial Day. The picnics, the starts of summer, the boating, and the Indy 500 and the start of the best day ever of automobile racing with 3 worldwide events, starting with the Monaco Grand Prix, then the Indy 500, and then the Charlotte 600. So let's get down to business and let's talk about the racing that's coming up this weekend. But first, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Imola and the incredible race that we saw for the Italian Grand Prix 2 weeks ago at Imola. Unbelievable, or last week, excuse me. Unbelievable racing where Max Verstappen held off Lando Norris by 0.7 seconds. 0.07 tenths of a second to win the race. Had Orlando had an opportunity on lap 58 to get the DRS zone working for him and got within that 1 second that you need in order to get your DRS activated, then Lando very well could have probably efforted a pass on Max, and who knows what the outcome would have been. But I can tell you this, it would have been epic. An epic, epic Formula One race. And it was still pretty good. And that's why I love Formula One, as opposed to races that are manufactured by NASCAR, for instance, which I used to be the #1 huge loyalist and fan. Formula One let this race organically present itself from start to finish. I don't believe there was a safety car or a virtual safety car. The strategies played out based on how the team thought they could work their fuel, not fuel strategy because you're filled up, but your tire strategy for the race. Lando Norris saved his tires, so while Max had a relatively comfortable lead, say 4 or 5 seconds, which for him is nothing, Lando really started because he saved his tires to eat into that lead. And it was an incredibly good finish with Max coming in first, Lando a very closest race in a long time second, and then Charles Leclerc for third. Good run by Mercedes, good run. Checo came from 11th to 8th. Yuki Tsunoda finished 10th. Lance Stroll 9th for Alpine, or not Alpine, excuse me, for Aston Martin. So some very, very interesting things to take away from that race. And obviously one of them had to be who finished where. So our top 10 or whatever were Max and Lando, Charles Leclerc. Oscar Piastri had a 3 grid place penalty placed on him at the start because he had impeded Nico Hülkenberg in qualifying. So he started farther back. He may have been a bigger factor in that race had he started in, I believe he was second. So it would have been a big difference there. Then Carlos Sainz was in 5th, and then the 2 Mercedes with Hamilton and Russell 6th, 7th. Sergio comes in 8th, and Lance Stroll 9th, and Yuki 10th. Pretty good. For the back barkers, not a bad race, I will tell you. Nico came in 11th with the Haas. Daniel Ricciardo didn't have a great weekend, I don't think, in the V-Carb Red Bull. Ocon 14th. Zhou Yu and, beat out Valtteri Bottas. Okay, they're all having problems. Alpine's having problems. So let's say your top 4 teams right now in F1 coming into Monaco are probably Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, and then Mercedes-Benz. They have found something on that car that has catapulted them ahead of Aston Martin. Those are the top 14. And I would say, because of their driver lineups they have, any one of those teams could score podiums coming into Monaco very, very easily. I'd like to see Mercedes get a little more competitive, but considering what they had to do in Imola, I think they did great. 30 years prior was when Ayrton Senna in his McLaren lost his life, along with Ratzenberger at that weekend. So it's always a tough weekend at Imola. This weekend in Monaco, McLaren will be honoring Senna with a special Ayrton Senna livery for the Monaco GP. So look for that. A little bit of the difference in the Papaya car will be very, very pretty. You may have seen at the beginning of this video today. I think your midfield, though, is V-Carb. Red Bull Jr. has come up to the midfield. They're no longer a back marker. I think because of the efforts of Yuki and Daniel, I'll give them both, that team is starting to not just become the junior Red Bull team, but a legitimate contender for points in the midfield. I think they might actually be stronger than Aston Martin now. Aston Martin, for some reason, really ascended high, was really there, and Fernando Alonso, boy, what a crap weekend he had. Started from pit lane, used the race as a testing session, basically, and wanted to just get out. Just wanted to get out and get on with it and get to Monaco. Hopefully they'll bring something to Monaco, because he came that close to winning pole last year, and had he won pole last year, if it were not for a Max Verstappen bonsai run in Q3 right at the end, Fernando Alonso very well could have won that race last year. But, you know, I digress. Okay, so, but the midfield cars have got to be, I would say, and nobody would pick this, and I watch a lot of guys on Formula One to get my information. You know, I steal like everybody else does from everybody, and I'd love to give everybody attribution, but there are so many. I would give you all that I watch everybody. But I would tell you this, V-Carb definitely a midfield contender. Aston Martin dropped from the top 5. I think they're probably maybe 5th fastest, might be 6th though, but they're a midfield guy. They got to get back up into that elite thing, and Haas Automotive is way off the bottom. Haas definitely entrenched itself. Two good drivers. Hulkenberg, Kevin Magnussen doing what he's got to do to be a team player, has vaulted that team squarely into the midfield. So that leaves your back marker teams are Alpine, which is a disgrace. Sauber, Kick Sauber, you know, going to become Audi after next year, and then Williams. And we can talk about that poor Alex Albon. Signs a new contract with Williams. He says, I'm going to give you my skills. He's at the peak of his career. He can pull. Lily, his girlfriend, one of the most beautiful women in Formula One. He's a talented driver. He signs with Williams. I'm sure they paid him a lot. And what did they do? They give him a car and a team that was just so far off the mark that you thought they were a Formula 3 team. They screwed up pit stops. They sent him out with a tire that wasn't on. He got a penalty for a early or dangerous release from the pits. And then, to make things even worse than they could have been, he hits a curb and the car loses power and he's out of the race. So, Alonso starts from pit lane. Logan Sargent starts 19th. Albon, by the way, started 14th in the race. Sargent did get through the race, which I'll give him, and he got 17th, and he beat Valtteri Bottas and Alexander Albon. So, you know, he was a lap down. There were a lot of cars a lap down. Pierre Gasly, the Alpine cars, they got to find something. Again, I wouldn't put it surprisingly if Andretti didn't buy Alpine. So, anyway, as we go to Monaco, which is one of the best races of the year from certainly an aesthetic standpoint, okay, as a racing venue itself, very tight racing, very hard to pass, and really the key to Monaco is how you qualify. 2 years ago, Sergio took the pole, won the race. Last year, Max took the pole, won the race. Sergio didn't get the pole, 2 years ago. It was Ferrari sat on the pole. So from third position, he managed to beat the 2 Ferraris and win the race. It's where you qualify at Monaco. So Saturday afternoon, when Monaco qualifying is on, if you're not watching anything else, that hour is going to be probably the most intense hour for the Monaco weekend. The cars are beautiful. The landscapes are gorgeous. The super yachts are unreal, and I would say if you have a chance, please go see E. Sisman Super Yacht News. I'll put it right here for you. I'll put a graphic of that up here so that you can go look at his video on the pre-Monaco yachts coming in to there. It's unreal. Motor yacht. Loon left the Caribbean to go to Europe so that it could be in Europe for the season and for the Monaco race. Imagine what it costs to dock your yacht at Monaco, especially during the Grand Prix. It cannot be. So but it's sure fun, I'll bet. Sure, a lot of fun. So, Monaco, my prediction is whoever wins the pole pretty much got about a 90% chance of winning the race. So I'm not going to put any bets on until I figure out Saturday afternoon who's going to win the pole. But I would say that Max is probably going to win the pole. Okay, I think Sergio, it is a street course. He loves street courses. He's good on street courses. He wins on street courses. He's won Azerbaijan, street course. Monaco, he's won street courses. He knows how to race very close to the barriers. I think it's the sixth sense he has, that perhaps a skill that some of the drivers don't have. But I think he could win this race. I would love it if Checo won this race, because I've never seen a driver who is so good, who scores so many points, so pilloried by the rest of the media and by his own team for not getting the job done, when you have arguably the best, a generational driver in Max Verstappen, who could beat everybody, like Lewis Hamilton could 10 years ago. I mean, it's very hard to be held up to that high a standard, yet they hold Perez to that. They hold nobody else up to that standard, and I think it's getting to him. I believe he's not going to be with Red Bull next year. I think he's gone also, but we're waiting for Sainz. With the silly season underway, with Albon now signed with Williams for the foreseeable future, that leaves Mercedes-Benz. I think the next domino to fall is Mercedes. And if Sainz doesn't take it, I would not be surprised if Toto Wolff doesn't go grab Valtteri Bottas, brings him back for 1 year so he can get Kimi Antonelli ready for F1. Kimi Antonelli needs 1 more year in F2. He's only 18 years old. If he comes into Formula 1M, people think he's another Max. I don't think there is another Max, but I think he'll be great. But I think if you rush him, you can screw it up. Logan Sargent was every bit as good or better than Oscar Piastri when they raced in lower junior formulas. But because of Williams needing a driver, because Nicholas Latifi left, his money left, and he left, Williams pulled Logan Sargent too soon, I think, up to F1. He could have used another year, and I think that's ruined his career in Formula One. I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone. I think he's gone next year. I think Magnussen is gone next year. It wouldn't surprise me to see Bottas go to Mercedes-Benz for 1 year, on a 1-year deal, to get Antonelli ready. Then you're going to have two seats at Haas that need to be filled. I think one's Oliver Behrman, who raced Ferrari, who did really, really well in a great car, and he's a decent driver. He came in top 10 in his very first Formula One race. That's great. Remember, you got to learn how to go fast, you got to learn how to race side by side, then you got to learn to win. Oliver Behrman is well on his way to that. But Kimi Antonelli needs more P1 free practice 1 experience in an F1 car. Even though he's on MLS track, he's at tracks in 2-year-old F1 cars doing laps over in England. That leaves Joe Granu, I think, maybe into Haas. Just a thought, since he draws so well for the Chinese Grand Prix, that perhaps Haas takes him on. There might be some money that would come with Joe Granu to help the Haas team. But, he's a fairly decent driver also, and he may stay. So my thoughts are, gone are Sargent and Magnussen. Maybe stay, but switch would be Bottas. Joe Granu maybe to Haas. Okay, Oliver Behrman to Haas. And then I'm not really sure what happens next. You might see Alpine make some changes. The big change could be if Andretti buys Alpine. That could be a big change. So we shall see. So my predictions for Formula One for the weekend are going to be Red Bull takes the win, Ferrari second, McLaren third. Put your driver in. I don't know. Anyway, that is my predictions for Monaco. Okay, so now it's time to talk about the Indy 500. This second race, it goes off at 12:28. Unbelievable. Going to be a great race. Some great drivers in this race. NASCAR driver doing the double. We'll talk about him in 1 second. Provisional starting lineup, though, has Scott McLaughlin on the pole with Will Power and Joseph Newgarden. What do they have in common? They're all Team Penske drivers, so Penske locks out the front row. Think about this. They can swap the lead between the three of them. They can save fuel because this is a fuel mileage run. They can save tires. They can break the air up for each other. And if somebody like Rossi or Kyle Larson or Rinus VeeKay or Pato O'Ward don't get up there to stop it, those three could dictate and control the race. There should be a couple of cautions. There'll be a couple of wrecks. Hopefully they will not be. They will be used strategically by teams to help position them to get them ready. For many, many years, the team, and I still believe this is true, if you're leading on lap 190, you don't want to. You're not going to win the race because things change so quickly. My only prayer for Indy and for Charlotte is that they don't do some bull spit, green-white checker type finish. It ruins the race. Let the race be the organic race. And my thoughts are, if it's on lap 198 and you're racing for the lead and there's an accident and the caution flies, guess what? If that's the race, that's the race. You know what? People want to see the legitimate winner win the race. And I think when you go to races where you have these green-white checkers, the guy who has earned his spot at one very likely loses that spot to somebody who steals the race from him, and I just don't think it's fair. But again, that's me. So Kyle Larson, NASCAR, okay, champion, is going to start 5th in the Indy 500 as a rookie. Excellent. Set a rookie one-lap record, but not the 4-lap record because Tony Stewart holds that. Qualified at 2:32.82. Now, a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about Miami and also Indy, I said that they started practicing at 2:29, and I said that won't even get the pole. Well, it won't because the pole was 2:34. The lap average was 2:31.9, and the slowest car in the field is Graham Rahal, and Graham Rahal driving a Honda Dallara is at 2:29.9. So these guys were flying around that track. Now, practice 8 is the day after the qualifying when the field is set. Okay, some of the other guys that I like, Helio Castroneves is starting 20th. He's one of my favorites. He's going for win number 5. Romain Grosjean, who was a Haas Formula 1 driver, starting 26th. But again, driving a Chevrolet, okay, it's got power. Qualifying is an interesting beast. When you get now to practice for Monday, these cars, now they start trimming these cars out so that they run in the race, not for qualifying. So they get slower. Your top, so let's see, where can I find practice 8? Nope, that's not it. Hang on, let me pull it up here. Practice 8 results. Joseph Newgarden, okay, 2:26. And where was he before Newgarden? 2:33. So you can see the difference. He's starting 3rd, but he's running a 2:26. Colton Herta in a Honda, okay. Honda, he was one of the fastest Hondas, but he was like in 13th spot. So, didn't qualify super well. I mean, in the top 12, but he's still in the midfield there, right? He was second quick at 2:26.2. I mean, 0.0028 of a second. These cars are identical. So these guys are going to be racing smart. And Romain Grosjean, who I said is starting back, he came in and he was 8th quick in his Chevy powered Dallara at practice rate 8. Now, the big key is going to be Friday, which is carburation day. There's no practice. Today's Wednesday. I'm doing this. Tomorrow's Thursday. Friday is carburation day. That is the last practice session you have. how they line up there is going to be a pretty good precursor as to who's going to win. But I'm going to tell you, if Newgarden is already rocking, he's got a good shot. I think Scott Dixon has a great shot. Will Power is starting second. Helio Castroneves, who's starting in the back at 20th, he was 13th, quit. And our last place guy, who was 229, okay, was Graham Rahal. He was 11th fastest at 225. So where you start doesn't necessarily dictate where you finish in the Indy 500. It's going to be a great race. So make sure you watch that. And then we're going to go on to Charlotte. Charlotte used to be the race I cared about. So here's my Indy 500 predictions. Okay, here's what I think. I think Will Power's going to win the Indy 500. He hasn't won in a couple of years, but he's certainly got the car. He's got Team Penske, and they have the will to do it. So maybe Will Power wins that race, and I don't know who comes in second. You could toss it up, though, between Newgarden, Colton Herta, if Andretti buys Alpine, by the way. Herta's going, I'm pretty sure. Alexander Rossi, former Indy 500 winner. Ryan Hunter-Reay, former winner, four-time winner Helio Castroneves, all those guys, Takuma Sato, those guys, any one of those guys could win. I would say the only person I can guarantee who's not going to win, and it's nothing against her at all, there's a couple, Callum Ilott and Catherine Legge. I just don't think they have as strong enough teams, but I'm glad they made the field, and I think Catherine Legge, she cleans up pretty good, and it's great that she's in the race. She deserves to be there as much as anybody. So, that's the Indy 500. Charlotte, World 600. It'll be fun to see if, you know who I'm talking about? My NASCAR guy. If he can, he'll make it back, unless he somehow wins, which I don't think. I'm sorry, Kyle Larson. If Kyle Larson can get back for the race, if he wins, he won't. Okay, if something happens, I think they have Tony Kanaan waiting in the wings if he needs to replace Kyle Larson, because I think his NASCAR commitment comes first. But he's going to leave the racetrack, get on a plane, take an IV, get to Charlotte, take a helicopter, get to the track, get in his race car, and race 600 miles. It would be awesome if he finishes high in the Indy 500. I believe Kurt Busch got sixth, and Robbie Gordon almost won the thing when he did the double, Robbie Gordon, and he could have won the World 600 because he was running for Childress at the time, so he had two cars that could win the race. Kyle Larson's got two Hendrick cars that could win the race also. So I don't know who's going to win the World 600. I think it'll be fun to watch. Anyway, that's me, FreDDie B. You've got my Indianapolis, my Monaco, and a little bit of Charlotte. I'll look forward to talking to you later. Ta-ta for now.